The warning came too late. 1,000 worlds had already fallen, their civilizations erased like chalk sketches in the rain. Araxis Prime wasn't supposed to be next. It was the jewel of the sector, a beacon of hope that had survived millennia. Yet now, from orbit, its surface was unrecognizable. Smoke rose in jagged columns from shattered cities, the skeletal remains of spires piercing the ash-choked sky. High Chancellor Talon's eyes were hollow, reflecting nothing but the blinking red lights of failing defense grids. Every ally they had ever trusted had abandoned them. Every treaty, every alliance, dissolved the moment the Vorath ultimatum arrived. "We regret we cannot intervene," every message had said. Relief mixed with sorrow in Talon's gut. The galaxy had turned its back, and the Vorath had a hunger that no one could sate. But then, a pulse, a single encrypted transmission that should have been impossible. It wasn't from another desperate world. It wasn't a cry from a nearby sector. It was coming from beyond their charts, beyond anything Talon had ever imagined. And it carried a single, terrifying message. "Humans, we have nowhere else to turn." The chamber went silent. No one moved. Not because of fear, but because the words meant something none of them had anticipated. The humans were still out there. Waiting. Watching. Perhaps even stronger than anyone had imagined. And somewhere, deep in the shattered corridors of Araxis Prime, Talon realized, asking for help from humans might just change everything, or doom them all. No one knew what to expect from humanity. Legends whispered across the outer colonies spoke of their relentless ingenuity, their audacity in battles that no one else could win. But those were myths, stories told to inspire hope in desperate times. Talon didn't have myths, he had desperation. And now, that desperation had a name. The transmission pulsed again, each signal sharper, insistent. Coordinates appeared, an uncharted jump point far beyond Vorath patrols. The message repeated, almost pleading, "If not you, who else?" Every advisor in the room argued against it. "It's suicide. Humans don't intervene in alien wars," one said, voice trembling. Another shook his head, muttering about ancient treaties and humanity's history of isolation. But Talon saw something else. Something ancient, something primal that went beyond politics and strategy, survival and the spark of defiance. He made a choice. A single ship, the Vanguard, would take the jump point. No fleet, no backup. Just a fragile hope propelled by faith that humanity could, somehow, tip the scales against an enemy that had devoured entire systems. As the ship prepared for departure, a shadow moved in the command deck, someone who had kept silent until now. "High Chancellor, do you understand what you're asking? This isn't just a call for help. If they respond, humanity could change the balance of the galaxy. Forever." Talon didn't answer. He couldn't. Because in that moment, he understood the truth. The Vorath weren't just enemies, they were a test. And humanity might just be the answer no one else had dared to imagine. The jump through the uncharted corridor was instantaneous, but it felt like an eternity. The crew of the Vanguard braced themselves as the stars twisted, streaking into lines of white light. Every instrument aboard screamed warnings. Every calculation said this was impossible. And yet, they emerged unscathed on the other side, staring at a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships. Not a single one smaller than a city block. Sleek, angular, almost alive, their hulls glowing with energy that defied comprehension. They weren't just powerful, they radiated confidence, purpose, and a subtle message: we are not to be underestimated. The first human voice came through the comms, calm, almost casual. "We read your signal. You asked for help, so here we are." Talon's heart raced. This wasn't a fleet coming to negotiate or bargain. It was a force of nature, silent and terrifying in its precision. He saw no banners, no insignias, only movement and resolve. But before relief could take hold, the Vanguard sensors picked up a horrifying truth. Vorath ships were already nearby. Hundreds of them. They'd followed Araxis Prime's distress signal, and were closing in faster than anyone had predicted. The human commander's next words were measured but chilling. "We don't negotiate. We don't retreat. Prepare yourself, or die." And somewhere deep in Talon's chest, fear tangled with hope. Humanity wasn't coming to plead. They were coming to fight. And if the Vorath thought Araxis Prime was going to be another easy conquest, they were about to learn a lesson no one had survived to tell before. The first shots didn't announce themselves. They erased everything in their path. Vorath warships opened fire, plasma tearing through the void, but the humans didn't flinch. Energy shields flared, repelling beams that would have vaporized entire fleet. Talon watched from the vanguard, powerless and awestruck, as human ships moved with precision that seemed almost instinctual. One human vessel darted between two massive Vorath dreadnoughts, a single, almost playful maneuver, and then unleashed a blast that split both enemy ships in half. Silence followed. Not the silence of peace, but the stunned silence of shock. Even the most battle-hardened Vorath commanders had never faced anything like this. Talon realized something terrifying and exhilarating. Humanity didn't fight like anyone else. They didn't rely on numbers. They didn't rely on treaties, cunning, or diplomacy. They fought like predators with purpose, like a species that had survived countless impossible odds, and thrived because of it. And then the Vorath did something unexpected. They regrouped, their ships forming a wall of fire, cutting off Araxis Prime from the jump point. The humans didn't panic, they smiled. "High Chancellor," the commander's voice crackled over comms, calm as if they were discussing tea instead of galactic annihilation. "We didn't come here to negotiate. We came to end this." In that moment, Talon understood that hope wasn't coming from somewhere distant. It wasn't hidden in some weapon or secret plan. Hope was human. And if the Vorath thought Araxis Prime was their next feast, they were about to be served a reckoning they wouldn't forget. The battlefield became a symphony of destruction. Vorath warships screamed through space, their engines scorching trails across Araxis Prime's orbit. Entire city-sized platforms shattered in seconds. And yet, the humans moved like a single organism, coordinated, unpredictable, unstoppable. Talon could barely comprehend what he was seeing. One human frigate zipped between a cluster of Vorath cruisers, firing micro-warheads that detonated with surgical precision. Another launched a swarm of drones that disassembled enemy shields before anyone could react. It was chaos, but a chaos with purpose. Then the unexpected happened. A Vorath flagship, the largest in their fleet, broke formation and surged toward the vanguard's position. Panic gripped Talon and his crew. If that ship hit, Araxis Prime would be obliterated in minutes. But humanity didn't flinch. A massive human dreadnought emerged from hyperspace, appearing like a ghost in the void. It cut through the flagship's path with an energy beam so precise it carved the ship in half, as if it were paper. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was a collective realization across every world watching that humanity had arrived, and they were nothing like the galaxy expected. And then came the signal, clear, loud, impossible to ignore. "High Chancellor Talon, you wanted help. Consider this your warning, and your salvation." Talon felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Pure, unfiltered, blazing hope. But as the Vorath retreated to regroup, he realized the terrifying truth. Humans didn't just fight to survive, they fought to change the rules of the galaxy forever. The smoke of battle cleared, but the silence that followed was heavier than any explosion. Araxis Prime still bore scars, craters, shattered spires, and fires that refused to die, but the Vorath fleet had been forced to retreat. For the first time in decades, Talon allowed himself to breathe. Humanity had not just arrived, they had overwhelmed impossibility itself. Then the human commander's voice came through the comms, calm and almost casual. "We're not finished. We only intervene when the outcome matters, and this war, it matters. But know this, Chancellor, we do not stay for politics. We do not negotiate favors. We fight and we leave legends behind." Talon's mind reeled. Legends. They weren't here for treaties or alliances. They were here for justice, for principle, for the sheer audacity to stand against the impossible. Humanity didn't need permission to be heroes, they were heroes by nature. But relief was short-lived. A new blip appeared on the tactical displays. Not Vorath. Something else. A massive, dark presence emerging from beyond known space, drawn by the chaos. And it wasn't waiting politely for introductions. Talon realized the chilling truth. The galaxy had just seen the first glimpse of humanity, and whatever was coming next would learn, very quickly, that humans were far more than anyone had ever imagined. The shadow emerging from beyond space was unlike anything Araxis Prime had ever seen. Massive, black, and alive with a cold, alien intelligence, it moved as if the galaxy itself had taken form and decided to strike. Vorath were cautious. Araxis Prime's defenders were paralyzed. And Talon felt the weight of despair return. Then the humans acted. In a maneuver that defied physics, the human fleet split into patterns no Vorath or alien mind could predict. Energy surged, weapons flared, and every strike was precise. Not random, not chaotic, but intentional. The dark presence hesitated, then lashed out, only to find itself cut down by strategies no one had thought possible. Talon watched, awestruck, as humanity didn't just win, they redefined the rules of warfare. Ships that seemed impossible, weapons that defied comprehension, tactics that turned fear into hope, all orchestrated flawlessly. And in the final moment, the human commander's voice echoed across the void, calm and unwavering. "You called for help. We answered. Remember this, Chancellor. No matter how dark it gets, humanity stands. Always." The Vorath, the Shadow, the galaxy itself, none would forget this day. Humans weren't just another species. They were a force, a reckoning, a beacon of hope for every corner of the cosmos. And for Araxis Prime, for Talon, for every abandoned world that had once cried for aid, a simple truth became undeniable. The humans had arrived. And they would never be underestimated again.